There we go. Hello, everybody. I'm very well, thanks. I hope you guys are all okay. You'll have to excuse me today. Um, where I am is really, really, really hot, and I'm wearing a t-shirt because it's the coolest thing I have. So I might apologise for my non-professional attire. So anyway, hi everybody. I know some of you guys. I think I have met some of you guys before, but there's lots of people who are very, very new here. So my name's Paul. Nice to meet you all. Um, that's who I am. That's my website. And one of the things that I like to do, one of the things that I specialize in, I suppose, is helping people to improve their listening and understanding of English, particularly of native English speakers. Things like, people enjoy watching TV and movies in English, but it can be very difficult unless you have the subtitles. But one of the things that I do is help people to be able to watch movies, speak on the phone, and interact in Zoom calls like this with other English speakers without stress. Okay, so that's what today's lesson is all about. It's about allowing you to communicate more effectively with other people in English without as much stress as it sometimes causes. So we're going to be talking today about a thing called active listening. Okay, and so we're going to talk about a few things, but don't worry, this is actually a lesson. We are going to get to do some practice. Okay, we are going to practice active listening. Yeah, but first of all, we're going to talk about why listening is hard, why it's important, how to practice active listening, and then we're going to practice. Okay, so over the course of the past few weeks, I've been asking you guys on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on various sort of platforms, why is listening hard for you? What is the most difficult thing for you guys when it comes to listening? And these are some of the responses that I've had. So native English speakers talk too fast. There are many, many different accents. Sometimes the pronunciation we use is strange, which is true. Someone told me native speakers don't separate words. That's true. We use a lot of connected speech. Okay. Understanding on the telephone. Excuse me one second. Understanding on the telephone. That was a very interesting response. Understanding on the telephone is actually, in my view, harder than when you can see somebody face to face, because there's nothing visual to help you on the telephone, and that is probably why it's hard. Okay, there are also lots of differences in the English that you have perhaps learnt. There are many differences between British and American English, for example, and they're just two versions of English that are available. Okay, and also slang. Slang can be confusing unless you understand the slang. Okay. Okay, so these are just some, not all of the responses. These are the most interesting responses that I got. Okay, and I've actually done some of my own research over the past few years, and I've read lots and lots of articles and read lots of research done on why it is difficult to understand. Okay, now let me share with you the top 5 reasons why it is difficult for you to understand English speakers. So the first difficulty is actually matching the sound that is created when somebody speaks to the word that you know, the word that you're familiar with. Yeah. So you might open your vocabulary books, or you might be learning lots of words and you know how to pronounce the word, but then you hear a sound and that sound doesn't match any of the words that you're familiar with. Yeah, that's the first reason. Okay, the second reason is actually nothing to do with the vocabulary, it's to do with the meaning of the words, because words take different meanings depending on how they're used. There isn't, in most languages, but I know specifically in English, there is never one clearly defined meaning of a word. The meaning can change depending on how the word is used. So not understanding meaning is important. And that could include things like sarcasm or humor. If somebody is being sarcastic, you might understand the actual words, but do you understand the meaning that's associated with the sarcasm? Okay, context. Sometimes we do not understand the subject, the context. Yeah, that can happen in every situation. English speakers use bad grammar. This is unfortunately very, very, very true. Yeah, we do not use the same grammar that you guys learn in your grammar books or in your grammar courses. We just don't use correct grammar when we speak. Okay, and finally, the last but not least, one of the fifth reason why it can be difficult to understand is vocabulary, a new word. It might just be one new word, but if your total focus is on understanding one new word, you kind of lose your focus or your understanding of everything else. Okay, so there are a number of reasons, a number of things to consider. So, they're your top 5 reasons why listening and understanding is difficult when you're learning not just English, but any language. Right. So in our lesson today, we are going to practice a thing called active listening. And I'm going to focus particularly on chunks, language chunks. Now, the concept or the idea of a chunk of language may be new to some of you guys, or it may be something that you're already familiar with. Basically, a language chunk, when we talk about chunks in terms of learning a language, we're not really focusing on the words themselves. We are focusing on the sound of those words when they are put together. Yeah? Language chunks include sort of idiomatic expressions, collocations, phrasal verbs, grammatical forms. The best way to learn chunks of language is to focus on the sound of the words when they're used, rather than focusing on the actual words themselves. Now, there are some chunks of language which you guys know, and you can see on the screen. These are some chunks that are very, very common. Okay, so I would, okay, but when we say that, we very rarely say I would. We'd say I'd. I'd like a pizza. Yeah, or I have. When we're saying that, we'd say I've a t-shirt. Yeah, okay. And just to make that even a little bit more complicated for you, we can combine I would have and use the short form I'd have. If you listen to the way I pronounce that, I'd have. Yeah, I'd have has absolutely no relation to these 3 words, I would have. The actual sound, I'd have, bears no relation at all to the actual vocabulary itself. So those are just some interesting, simple examples of chunks. I have a few more complex examples of chunks for you. Okay, don't be too confused with what you can see on the screen. Okay. Okay, so can I have a? Now, if I say that at my normal speed, this is kind of what it sounds like. Can I have a? Can I have a? One more time, just repeat that one more time. Can I have a? Okay. And if you can learn to recognize that sound, can I have a, then you know that it's somebody saying, can I have a? Can I have a whatever? Yeah. What shall we do next? What'll we do next? What'll we do next? One more time. What'll we do next? So you can see the sounds bear very little resemblance to the words. Okay, and the final example I have for you, I have got to tell you something amazing. This is a mouthful even for me. I've got to tell you something amazing. I've got to tell you something amazing. Yeah, that is a very, very large chunk of language, but it's a very, very common phrase. I've got to tell you something amazing. Yeah. Okay. So that's chunks. Now we're going to focus. We're going to focus more on chunks, particular language chunks, in a few minutes. Here's a question for you guys. A lot of you guys have told me through on LinkedIn, Facebook, and various sort of ways of communication that you all want to improve your listening abilities, your ability to understand. So what is the best way to improve your skills? The answer is practice. Yeah, the only way you are going to improve your skills is through practice. Okay, and you're right, watching something, say on Amazon or Netflix, is a very good way to practice your listening and understanding skills, but is it the best way? Is it the best way to practice? So we're coming to the main part of our lesson, and we are going to, I want to teach you guys about this thing that I call active listening. Okay, which is very different to the alternative, which is what I call passive listening. Now, for me to explain to you guys what active listening is, the easiest way for me to do it is to explain to you what passive listening is first of all. Okay, so passive listening is watching Netflix or Amazon or YouTube, because while you are doing that, you are probably focusing on several other things as well. Perhaps you have your phone, perhaps you're sending an email, perhaps you're sort of watching a movie with your family or your friends, and during the movie you're sharing popcorn and drinks and you're chatting. Another form of passive listening is going for a jog, going for a run in the park with your headphones on, listening to a podcast. Okay, that is passive because your main focus is on your exercise and your listening is a secondary skill that you're practicing. Yeah, so passive listening is anytime you are listening while you are doing something else as well. While there is something else to focus, to sort of take your focus away from the listening. Yeah, intensive listening is another way to describe what I'm trying to say to you. Now, intensive listening is something that requires 100% of your focus. Okay. Now, this isn't something that you can do for a long period of time. There is absolutely no way, I think, could you guys watch a movie on Netflix that's perhaps 90 minutes and 100% focus for the whole 90 minutes. Your brain would explode if you tried to do this. So you can only really do active listening or intensive listening for very, very, very short periods of time. 15 minutes maximum, absolutely. But even during that 15 minutes, you have to sort of, listen intensively, take a break, listen intensively, take a break. Okay? And that's exactly what we are going to do in a few minutes. What I'm going to ask you guys to do is listen to something that I'm going to read to you. Okay? So to really get the most out of this class, you're going to need a pen and a piece of paper. Okay, so if you don't have a pen and paper, now is the opportunity to go and get one. Because what I'm going to ask you to do is basically dictate or transcribe the words that you're going to hear from my voice. Now, why am I going to do this? Why am I asking you to do this? The first reason is because if I ask you to write down the words that you hear, that will focus your attention onto just one activity, listening and writing. Yeah, understanding. And science has proven that if you write things down, it actually helps you to understand more as well. Right, but I'm not just going to ask you, okay, to listen once and write once. What we're going to do, I'm going to read a paragraph of text. Don't get worried. I've timed myself and it takes me approximately 30 seconds to read a paragraph of text. The first time I read it, all I'm going to ask you guys to do is just close your eyes and listen. Yeah? It's as simple as that. Just close your eyes and listen. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes because if you have your eyes open, you're going to be focusing and looking around you. If you close your eyes and just focus on what you can hear for the first time, that will sort of help us get into the right frame of mind. Okay, are you ready? Right, so close your eyes. I don't want you to write anything yet. No cheating, no writing just yet. Just close your eyes and just listen for the first time. 30 seconds. Okay, here we go. On the final day of my sophomore year of high school, I was hit in the face with a baseball bat. As my classmate took a full swing, the bat slipped out of his hand and came flying towards me before striking me directly between the eyes. I have no memory of the moment of impact. The bat smashed into my face with such force that it crushed my nose into a distorted U-shape. The collision sent the soft tissue of my brain slamming into the inside of my skull. Immediately, a wave of swelling surged throughout my head. In a fraction of a second, I had a broken nose, multiple skull fractures, and 2 shattered eye sockets. Okay, that's it. So, I'm going to read again, and this time you do need your pen and your paper. I'm not going to slow down, okay? I'm going to try and read at a very, very, very natural pace. Don't worry, I do not expect that you will get 100% the first attempt, okay? But what I want you to do is just do your best, yeah? As I read, write down the words that you hear. Okay, here we go. On the final day of my sophomore year of high school, I was hit in the face with a baseball bat. As my classmate took a full swing, the bat slipped out of his hands and came flying towards me before striking me directly between the eyes. I have no memory of the moment of impact. The bat smashed into my face with such force that it crushed my nose into a distorted U-shape. The collision sent the soft tissue of my brain slamming into the inside of my skull. Immediately, a wave of swelling surged throughout my head. In a fraction of a second, I had a broken nose, multiple skull fractures, and 2 shattered eye sockets. Okay, so you guys should have written down, I don't know, I think if you guys in the first attempt have got 50% of those words written down, I think that's quite good. Like I said, I'm attempting to not slow down because when you're watching TV, Netflix, when you're talking to native English speakers, they will talk at their natural speed. And you have to practice listening to people speaking at their natural speed. The problem you guys have when you are perhaps watching a video aimed at English language learners, or when you have a class with a teacher, is we always slow our speaking down to learner speed, which is not natural. Okay, so Victor, you're saying you can understand the ideas. Aha, very interesting. That's what we want you to do. I don't expect you to get every word, but if you can understand the ideas, that's better. Yeah? Okay, so now you should have a piece of paper with lots of writing. I'm going to read again, and as I read, I want you guys to listen, but also read the writing on your piece of paper and see if what you have written actually matches what you can hear. Okay. So this is basically a way of sort of checking, did you manage to hear anything correctly? Yeah, or how much did you manage to hear correctly? Now, don't worry about your spelling and all sorts of things like that. We don't care whether your spelling's correct. What I want to know is how much of your writing was as accurate as possible. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to read again. Again, normal speed. On the final day of my sophomore year of high school, I was hit in the face with a baseball bat. As my classmates took a full swing, the bat slipped out of his hands and came flying towards me before striking me directly between the eyes. I have no memory of the moment of impact. The bat smashed into my face with such force that it crushed my nose into a distorted U-shape. The collision sent the soft tissue of my brain slamming into the inside of my skull. Immediately a wave of swelling surged throughout my head. In a fraction of a second, I had a broken nose, multiple skull fractures, and 2 shattered eye sockets. Okay, so I want to ask you guys, in terms of what you've written down on your piece of paper and what you have just heard again while you were reading, give yourself a mark out of 10 on how accurate you were. Yeah, try it, use the chat, give yourself a mark out of 10. Okay, 7, that's a good start. I would say anything over 5 is excellent. There's another 7 from Victor. Okay, 5 or 6. Yeah, honestly, anything over 5 is over 6. Only a 2 for Tatiana. Okay. Having 6. 6. Yeah. Right. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is, again, I'm going to read exactly the same paragraph to you. Okay. You've heard it 3 times already. So you should have quite a good understanding. You should have quite a lot of context already about what I'm going to say. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read one more time for you. Okay, and again, I would like you to sort of use what you have written down already. Okay, and I want you to perhaps read again while I am speaking, but I want you on a separate piece of paper to write down again. So you're going to take dictation, fresh dictation again. So you can use the notes that you have to help you, but I want you to take fresh dictation again. Okay, so another blank sheet of paper. Don't worry, this is the final time I'll ask you to do this, I promise. Okay. On the final day of my sophomore year of high school, I was hit in the face with a baseball bat. As my classmates took a full swing, the bat slipped out of his hands and came flying towards me before striking me directly between the eyes. I have no memory of the moment of impact. The bat smashed into my face with such force that it crushed my nose into a distorted U-shape. The collision sent the soft tissue of my brain slamming into the inside of my skull. Immediately a wave of swelling surged throughout my head. In a fraction of a second, I had a broken nose, multiple skull fractures, and 2 shattered eye sockets. Nick, I know it's very difficult to write down everything that I'm saying at such a speed. But as Sarah said, it's a good way just to practice your listening skills anyway. And as you're writing, even if you're only writing a few bits, you are improving your listening skills. Yeah. Active listening. I mean, I've just carried out a demonstration of active listening with you guys. Okay. Now, active listening, I know from over many years of teaching my students how to actively listen, that it will improve your listening and understanding skills. And actually, I'm not trying to improve your listening. I'm trying to improve your understanding. Yeah, they are two skills that are very closely linked. Okay, because if you can't hear, you can't understand. I want to improve your understanding skills. Okay, so that when you are faced with communicating with native English speakers or anybody speaking English, you can understand better. Yeah. Now already, just through this, I think it took us about 10 minutes to practice your first lesson of active listening. You have already improved by a slight amount, a minuscule amount, your ability to listen and understand. Yeah. I want to tell you guys that there is no miracle cure. Okay, there's no magic pill that I can give you. There's no magic wand that I can wave like Harry Potter and go jing that will improve your listening and your understanding skills like that. Okay, what I've done is given you a demonstration of active listening, which if you guys do nothing more than sort of take this sample of active listening and go away and practice doing something similar on your own for 5 or 10 minutes, 3 or 4 times a week, this time next year, okay, your ability to listen and understand will have been vastly improved. Yeah. What I can do is give you the skills and let you take this knowledge and these skills, okay, to go away and practice on your own. Yeah. This is a breakdown of the vocabulary that I have just read out to you. So in total, you guys heard 118 words. Okay. The reason I'm showing you this sort of breakdown of the vocabulary is because I want to dispel a myth that you cannot understand English because of vocabulary. In fact, it is the #1 excuse, and I'm using the word excuse, that people give me for not understanding. They think they do not understand vocabulary. Yeah, and lots of my students think they have to go and learn more and more and more vocabulary so that they can then understand. And that, I believe, is false, and I hope this slide shows you guys how false that assumption is as well. So I read out 118 words, and this is this classification is according to the Oxford University. Okay, so this is not my classification, this is Oxford University Press. Okay, so of those 118 words, 80 words are basic, simple vocabulary from A1 level. Okay, that all of you guys know. Okay, the next 10 words are A2, so slightly higher up the scale. Okay, there are only 4 B1, so lower intermediate level words. There were 10 sort of, higher intermediate words, but only 8 advanced pieces of vocabulary. Yeah? Does that surprise anybody? I thought it might surprise a lot of you, because I was reading something that was quite sophisticated in terms of the way it was written and presented, and it was certainly not something that was written for English learners. Okay, so it was quite sophisticated, but the vocabulary is very, very, very simple, apart from these sort of upper intermediate and advanced words. But if we say there were 18 words in total that were perhaps more advanced than others, some of those words were perhaps what I would describe as technical words as well. Technical words being very specific or specialist to a subject. Like, some of you guys might be engineers, you might be IT professionals, you might work in the travel industry. Yeah, and in your industries you have words, specific words that are specific to your industry. Those are words that I call technical words. Yeah, they're words that are very specific to a specific situation, scenario. And I would not expect everybody to understand every word relating to, say, programming of Java, or if somebody started talking to me about nuclear physics, okay, the concept I would understand, but the actual vocabulary would be new to me, okay, in any language. Yeah. So I'm showing you this to dispel the myth that you cannot understand because of vocabulary. It's nothing to do with vocabulary. Yeah? Now, there on the screen, I can see some of your eagle eyes already. That is what I was reading out. It looks, at first glance, like a sophisticated piece of writing. Yeah? But 118 words and 80, 90 of those words are simple, basic vocabulary that all of you guys know. Yeah? You know the words, but you don't necessarily know the sound that native English users use to pronounce those words. Okay? So it's not the vocabulary, it's actually your ability to listen and understand, which is the problem. Now, I said we're going to focus on some chunks of language. If you remember, chunks of language are, to me, the best way to learn a chunk of language is to learn the sound that those particular words make when they are spoken or pronounced. So I've highlighted a few chunks. I'm going to ask you guys, okay, just to close your eyes again. I don't want you to do anything, just close your eyes. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to read, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 6 chunks of language. I'm just going to read each chunk of language. I'll read each one of them 3 times. Yeah? I'll try and do it a little bit slower as well. I just want you to close your eyes and listen. Listen to the sound that it makes. Okay, so I'll go through them in a logical order. Okay, the first one. On the final day of. On the final day of my. On the final day of my. Came flying towards me. Came flying towards me. Came flying towards me. I've no memory of. I've no memory of. I've no memory of. With such force. With such force. With such force. This is my favourite. Slamming into. Slamming into. Slamming into. Final. The final one. In a fraction of a second. In a fraction of a second. In a fraction of a second. A chunk of language is just a group of words that are commonly used together, and you practice learning those words by the sound they make. These are just some chunks of language that I like, and I like the sound of, so these are the ones that I've chosen. I particularly like slamming into, slamming into, slamming into, which, I don't know, I mean, let me ask you guys, slamming into. Can you understand slamming into? Slamming into. I think my pronunciation, I'm doing it quite quickly. Yeah. But slamming into. Yeah. It's connected. Okay. It's quite fast. My pronunciation is, I don't know, very loose. Slamming into. Okay. It's a chunk of language that I enjoy. That's why I chose it. It's probably not the most common chunk of language that you guys perhaps want to learn or need to learn, unless you happen to be, I don't know, playing sport. And if you're playing sport, any kind of sport that might involve contact, you know, one soccer player slamming into another soccer player, for example. Yeah, it's a great phrase. Slamming into. Yeah, when we slam into, we make contact. Yeah. Okay. So in terms of learning chunks of language, and this is something that I always tell my students to do, yeah, there is no book on language chunks. Language chunks are just phrases, words, whole sentences sometimes that are common to you. Yeah. If you like the sound of what you hear, perhaps you like the sound of me saying slamming into. Yeah. you just copy the way those words are pronounced. And next time you're watching a football match, when you see two players collide on the pitch, you can use the words slamming into. They slammed into each other. Yeah. Or perhaps listen to a football match with English commentary. Yeah. Listen to it with English commentary and listen to how the football commentators describe the action on the pitch, and you have the visual as well as the audio, so you can hear what they're describing and see what they're describing. Okay, so that gives you context and meaning and helps you with understanding. Yeah, and then simply copy what how they pronounce it. Yeah, and use that next time you want to describe. Perhaps you want to describe what you saw within the soccer match, and you can use that chunk of language to describe what you saw just by copying. Yeah, that is how you learn chunks of language, by copying. And you can learn lots and lots and lots of chunks of language by doing active listening. Okay, and the best way to focus your attention is to dictate or transcribe while you're listening. Right, okay, so that's taken us about 45 minutes. What's next? Well, I'm gonna open up to questions in a few minutes. Yeah. The best thing that you guys can do is practice active listening. I don't know, once or twice a week. Yeah. For let's say if you practiced active listening 2 or 3 times a week, it takes you perhaps 5 or 10 minutes a day. For the next 6 months or 12 months, you will be able to hear and understand on Zoom calls, on video conferences, even on the telephone or in face-to-face, much better than you can now. Yeah. Or if you like this kind of learning or these kind of lessons, I am running a 3-week active listening workshop. So it starts on the 19th of July. So over 3 weeks, I'm going to give you 12 different lessons on active listening. 12 different active listening lessons. So there's video-based lessons, there's live classes. It starts on the 19th of July, Monday the 19th of July. Yeah. I'm going to give you guys a link. The normal price of this course, I run this course once a year. So if you guys click that link, you can see all of the details of the active listening workshop. When it begins, there's a whole section describing exactly what's involved, what you get, how it works, and the link I've given you will give you a 50% discount, and that is valid until the end of June. Okay, so if you would like to practice active listening with me, you have until the 30th of June, okay, to get a 50% discount. When you click that link, that is a picture of what you should see. Okay. Any more questions? No? Right, okay, well, we're going to finish there then, because it's really, really hot. Thanks for coming along. I hope the idea or the concept of active listening is something that you're interested in. Even if you just take the idea and go away and practice on your own, that's absolutely fine. I guarantee you, though, if you do it 2 or 3 times a week for the next 6 months, come back to me in 6 months, and I guarantee you that your ability to listen and understand will have vastly improved. Okay, thank you for coming. Have a great day, everyone. Okay. Have a nice weekend as well, if I don't see you all. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.